The problem that we faced was actually an interesting problem in the fact that we were approached by a number of TAFEs to provide allied health assistant trainee workplace experiences. And we were very keen to do that because we want to attract qualified allied health assistants to our workforce. But the challenge we faced is we didn't really have capacity with our existing staffing to take on more undergraduate student placements. We also faced the challenge of the fact that we didn't really know enough about what was expected of the workplace experience to really understand whether we had the right skills or the right skill mix to provide that training. The strategy that we used was twofold. One is we wanted to create the time and space for our clinical staff to actually look at what was expected of the program, to then think about what it is that they could do within their disciplines to create an appropriate workplace experience. And the second stage of it was how could we increase our capacity for providing undergraduate student placements or trainee placements. And one of the things that we recognised in exploring this is that we did have a window of opportunity with our clinical grade 1 staff who had experience working in the service but weren't yet engaged in the clinical undergraduate programs. So the idea was how could we upskill them to take on this new role. Challenges were initially how do we introduce a new role to clinical staff who already had a number of responsibilities and whose core business was really to provide clinical care. One of the ways we addressed that was to provide an opportunity for them to train a certificate for trainers in the workplace so that they gained a relevant qualification for taking on this role. And secondly, that would give them the right space and the right learning to fully understand what would be required of them as a trainer in the workplace. And the idea of that is that these senior staff would then develop a clinical placement program so that all of the staff in their discipline would have an understanding of what would be expected of them in providing that training. Certificate for Training and Assessment course that the staff are doing hasn't necessarily given them the opportunity to directly apply that to clinical work or the clinical setting. By exploring the detail of the training packages for the allied health assistant training was that there was very little structure and process around partnerships between the TAFE and the health services in creating these workplace processes. So we've identified a real need to build, what it is that we want the contracts to look like, what it is that we would expect of clinical staff in providing the workplace placement, what it is that we would expect of TAFE staff in actually assessing competence in relation to the placement. And as far as I'm aware, that is not actually in place at this point in time to create that process. So some of the benefits of the training program for us has been because we have put our hand up and have said we want to create an opportunity for training allied health assistant certificate for trainees. We've had a number of interests from TAFEs in partnering with us. One of the real advantages for us is that has meant that we've developed a very useful partnership with Swinburne TAFE in providing training for our own allied health assistant trainees. So we now have 18 of our allied health assistants who are doing the Certificate for Training course on site at Melbourne Health. And by doing that, not only do we create an opportunity for our allied health assistants, we also create an opportunity for us to pilot what it is that we're doing with our project and to look at really how well that project is rolling out and to iron out any problems before we create those opportunities for external trainees.
The major problem